Welcome to Rasher Wagon. Today we're going to play some My Garage. Messed around with this a little bit and liked it, so I wanted to try something a little more difficult. So we're going to do the hard start, which is without the garage. We also only start with $2,500 instead of the 10 grand that we normally do. We end up starting at the house instead of the garage since we don't own the garage yet. Got the customer parking right here, so when we take a job, this is where we'll start. Get this garage organized real quick. Your backpack is a handy tool because you can keep everything you need in it, so when you go to the junkyard, you're able to strip the parts you want and not have to take the entire car if you don't want to. After I was done with the garage, I went exploring, and near the house I found an old rundown cabin with a chair in it. So I decided to grab the chair and take it back to my house, maybe put it on my porch. I know it's a collectible and it should disappear after restart of the game. Either way, I think it would look cool outside of a log cabin. Now the only thing missing from the house is just an old dog sleeping next to it. I then went to explore more of the map, and after coming over top of a hill, I found this mansion. Outside the mansion was this Chad. So I scoped it out a little bit, decided, well, it's free, so why not grab it? Send it back to my house, and maybe I'll restore it later. Along the way, I've been collecting collectibles as I find them. Found this lamp on the beach, and I grabbed a guitar. Ran to the other side of the junkyard, and I found the lamp. Still kept my guitar. I ran all the way back to the pawn shop, but didn't quite make it in time, so I dropped the guitar and ran up the hill to go check out the used cars. I don't know what I was expecting to buy since I only have $2,400, so I still decided to look. Yep, everything's definitely outside of my price range. So we're going to run next door and check the price on the garage since we didn't get to start with it and see what we're going to be aiming for saving wise. Finding out it's 50 grand, I went back home and decided to start taking some jobs. I've heard that the best jobs to take worth making money are anything that's transmission related, so that's what I did. However, upon further review, I figured this was going to be a pain in the butt, seeing as how I didn't actually have the lift like in the garage. But that didn't let me detour me as I decided to do this in my driveway. And I left this part in just to show you how painful this really is. Yes, I fast forwarded the time, otherwise we'd be here for half an hour. It was crazy. After completing the job, I picked up the tools, organized a little bit, figured I'd start a junk pile of transmissions off to the side of the house here. I decided that I was a glutton for punishment and would continue to do this, seeing as how we needed to get to $50,000 anyways. Yes, I accepted these transmission jobs one after another until finally, after doing 6 of these jobs, I decided that I would hold off until I actually had the shop with a lift, because trying to do these in the driveway or off to the side of the driveway just wasn't very rewarding for the time that I was investing. So I packed up my wrench and decided to move on to my next venture idea for money making. Yep, I would find shells or buy cars from the junkyard and hose them down, clean them up, knock out any kind of dents that I might have found, grind off the rust, and then sell it for a profit. So I did this again and again and again and again, about 32 or 33 more times. I went ahead and just cut down to the part where I was selling them instead of showing you the process, because if that was the case, we'd be here half the day. Literally, this is 12 hours of footage that's been condensed down to 20 minutes or so. We finally had enough. I decided to look for a work truck, which would be great for hauling parts. So I went to the used car lot, seeing what I can find, and there just happened to be a truck in there within our price range. I still looked at the other cars just because, and ultimately bought the truck. I then ran next door to the garage and made my purchase there. Only left us with $6,000, but we'll make our money back. Found the radio sitting on the floor, so I moved it into the shop because every shop needs a good radio. After messing around in the garage, I ran next door because we needed to get some fluids for the truck, especially since we're going to be needing it to move all of our stuff from the house to the shop. So we added some oil. Good enough. Added some coolant. And we were off to the house. I'd never actually driven to the house, so this is my first time, and the snow didn't help trying to find the actual driveway, but once we arrived and pulled up to the garage, I hopped out and got myself an air filter housing lid, I guess. Replaced the old one, got it tightened down. And then we started loading up the truck with the old transmissions, old parts, and packing up what was in the garage to move it to the shop. Just before leaving, I closed the door and said goodbye to my rocking chair, and we drove down to the shop. Now was the time to do the unloading part and make some of the money back on those transmissions that I changed out. Some of the extra parts just came from cars that I would buy from the junkyard, and parts would fall off while I was grinding the rust or washing. Once we had everything put in the shop, it was time to set up the office area. I tried to set it up as close to the normal shop as you could when you start out, where the table placement is. It's a finicky little tool, especially when you're using an Xbox controller, but I managed to get it where I wanted it. Next, I took off that roof rack that came with the truck. Not my kind of thing, and I'm sure it's helpful for some, but I didn't think it looked right, so we'll make some money back on that. Took off the taxi sign, was going to throw it away, and decided, well, what if I ever did a taxi build? So I decided to keep it on the top shelf as a reminder, hey, you have this stupid taxi sign, use it on a car. I teleported back to the house because I realized that I forgot my customer parking sign for jobs, and so we grabbed it up with the move tool and ran it all the way back to the shop. I was going to put it in the usual spot, but I figured I'd park some cars on that side. So I put it next to the shop over here where I have my truck parked. I know when you expand the garage out that eventually this becomes another spot, so I'll deal with that in the future, but for the time being, that's a good enough placement for me. While driving the truck, I noticed that it pulled to the right quite a bit, and I was fighting it almost as if the alignment was off. I checked underneath and figured it would be a spring or something like that, so our first repair on this truck is going to be that spring on the front right. Yep, that spring is definitely needing to be changed. I see there's quite a bit of parts that need changed, but we'll start with that spring. Now the spring's installed, it was time to lower this thing down and get it parked. I noticed the front end was floating a little bit, so I stopped for a moment to let it catch up. I didn't know what kind of glitchy action was going to happen, but I really didn't want my truck to fly out of the world. I know this episode's been kind of jumpy, jumping from spot to spot, but as I said earlier, we ended up condensing 12 hours of footage into this 20-minute video. Basically, the goal of this episode was to save up enough money to get the shop. We got ourselves a shop truck, and that was more than I could ask for. I think going forward, the plan is we're going to get a 350 shop truck. That way we can change out the beds. We can do the flatbed to carry stuff, and we can also do the ramp truck to carry cars. So that's going to be a future project for us. But thank you for joining me today and checking out my garage. I've been uploading the uncut footage. If you want to check that out, there's a playlist of that. But I'll do this with a little bit of commentary in there. But if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like. And you can always subscribe, that helps. Sharing, that does a thing. Either way, that's it for today.